Welcome to Childcare Conversations with Kate and Carrie.
Wait a minute. You mean we have people who listen to us who don't actually understand why sometimes we need 2, 3, or 4 of something?
Yeah. I mean, it can be when we're hi guys, glad you're listening. So Kate and I have already been talking, obviously, before we hit the record button. So today we're talking about why you might want to have more than one center. And if you already have more than one center, some tools and techniques for managing multi-site centers. Because if you have a multi-site program, there are some pitfalls we'd like to keep you out of.
What? We want to help them?
Yes, we want to help. So let's, I didn't think that's where we were starting, but let's go ahead and start with what are some reasons that somebody might want to, if they're the owner, think about getting a second location, or if they are the director, they might want to talk to the owner or the board about why to have a second location. So why would we have 2 locations? Give me 3 reasons.
Well, okay, so reason number 1 is a foot long.
A foot long?
A foot long. So Subway sandwiches, which we all are pretty familiar with their yellow-green logo in the United States, is a sandwich sub company that the only reason they survived is because the owner took a shot and found a second location. His first one was not making money. He was almost bankrupt, and he opened location number 2. And it comes down to really number 2. So first one is footlong, and number 2 is economies of scale. So if you were part of our masterclass a few weeks ago on butts in the seats, where we talked about overhead, when you have 2 locations, you don't automatically double all of the overhead.
Right, because you had one accountant, you don't have to get a second accountant because you got a second location. You don't necessarily have to get a second insurance plan. You don't necessarily have to get a second of all kinds of things. You don't have to get a second set of substitutes. You've already got
and you get discounts, and you get to do the training that if you bring a trainer in to do your staff of 20, and now you're bringing a trainer in to do a staff of 20, a staff of 40, you're not paying them double.
Right.
So that component of scale and economy of scale, although it sounds very businessy, if you stop and think about it, it really makes a lot of sense. Because if your pest control folks are coming and they get to do 2 businesses, they're going to give you a discount, right? So if they get to do 2 locations,
yeah.
You got to ask for it. So don't ever forget to ask for that discount because you have 2 locations.
So the first one is that sometimes you just need 2 so that they can kind of cross-pollinate. They can promote each other. So that the whole Subway thing, if we have 2 of them, then people think you're more of a big deal. And then we've got economies of scale. So what is our third reason why somebody might want to have more than one childcare center?
Well, most people who start a business, they want more money. And you didn't start a business to be broke. You didn't start a business to be frustrated. And you really didn't start it to be overwhelmed, but that happens. But you know what? You learn something at the first location. And so now it takes you half the time to open the second location because you've already done this once. You already have.
So that was 2 different reasons. So you got me to 4. So you had to make more money. And the fourth one is to capitalize on all the stuff you have learned getting to this place.
Okay, so there's 4
reasons. Okay. There's probably more, but that gives you a window into why we think this is a good topic. How to operate multi-site locations.
Now I have a question for you, Carrie, because you started as a registered family home, then you had your first location, and then you expanded again, but you bought 2 other locations.
Yes. So I bought 2 locations. I mean, part of it was a knee-jerk reaction because they were great schools, and the owner was like, well, I think I'm just going to close them. And I was like, no, don't close them. So part of it was that, but I had already been thinking that it was time to expand because I was a school that was licensed for less than 50 because that's what felt safe to me to open. But it's hard, even in those days of the economy, to make a center with less than 50 kids, pay all the bills, and leave something for me as the owner to take home. So I wanted to expand. And to me, what made sense was instead of, growing sideways by buying one of the buildings next to me, I wanted to have a different location so that if people weren't in that neighborhood, I could still get clients. So part of it was wanting to have some diversity in location and have something that was closer to where I lived. So I bought those 2 schools, and then I ended up with the 4th school kind of accidentally. That wasn't on purpose. But, I understood, having grown up in my mother's household where we had one store and that was doing okay. We weren't rolling in the dough, but doing okay. And so my mom expanded to a second location that was more in the business district. The first location was by the university. The second was in the business district. And then she went into what was at the time kind of a suburb. And then eventually we had, I think, 7 or 9 stores when she sold it, because every time she added one, it was like an exponential growth. And she didn't have to do exponentially more work. She actually had to do less work when she had 5 stores than when she had 1, because when she had 1, she had to do all the day-to-day management. And when she had 5, she could have store managers.
Okay, so wait, that's what we just were talking about. All the navigating of why. So I love this example. Thank you for sharing. So when you had your 4 locations, did you have to do all of the work?
No. When I had 3 schools, I was able to have enough time when I wasn't covering a classroom, I wasn't filling out forms, I wasn't greeting parents, all of the stuff that goes into day-to-day running of a program, that I actually could homeschool my 2 kids, which is bananas to think about, that by going from 1 school to 3 schools, I actually had more time that I was available to not be in a classroom or be in the office. And it seems counterintuitive, but because I had to delegate some stuff, I couldn't be in charge of knowing when they were out of orange construction paper, because I wasn't in all 3 buildings 24 hours a day. I had to count on other people to do inventory of the construction paper and to put stuff on an order form.
So they had to follow the standard operating procedures that you created at the first location.
Yeah.
And therefore you hired a director, part-time director, lead teacher. You had a designated somebody in charge at the buildings, right?
Yep.
Am I hearing that correctly? Wow. Yep. So you actually got more time back, and you grew your business, and you went from 1 location to 3 locations.
Yes.
Wow.
The downside is I did take on debt, which I hadn't had any debt when I had just the 1 school, other than the mortgage. So to buy those other 2 schools, I did incur debt, but it was debt that was to grow a business. And so the bank didn't have any problem writing me that loan, because they were like, can I see the profit and loss statements for this business that you're buying? Great, here it is. Okay, yeah, we will absolutely underwrite that.
Well, that's a great point. So I know right now, if you are listening to this podcast in the fall of 2024, in Texas, we have a fair amount of businesses that are selling. We have had calls from directors in other states where we've been coaching them. And a lot of times we help people start their first program. So sometimes Carrie will spend time working with a client who's thinking about either buying an existing program or starting a franchise, which both have their pluses and minuses when it comes to being able to be bankable. Yep. So make sure that if you are listening to this and you're thinking about, oh, expanding and buying an existing program makes sense. Make sure you do your due diligence. So I know we could probably share a lot of horror stories, but I'd really rather just share kind of a really short list of some things. Make sure you get a real quality business broker who really understands childcare, and that you get to see those profit and loss statements that Carrie just talked about. Because we've had people talk to us over the years, and we think about it every once in a while, and then when we ask to see the profit and loss statements, the conversation kind of seems to stop. So,
or they show you the profit and loss statement. So one of my coaching clients, there was a school he was very, very interested in, and the business broker who was representing the sellers was very much like, oh, this is a perfect deal. This is great. Look at how much these people are taking home, because there were two people who were the owners. They were sisters, but they were also working full-time in the business. So they were like, look, they're taking $130,000 a year home. And I'm like, for two full-time jobs. So they're getting paid $60,000 a year, and they have all the risk of business ownership. That is not, you're still going to have to hire somebody to do those two jobs. So there's not enough skin in the game for somebody to buy it. Now, there was definitely room to expand the program, to grow the program. They were not full. There was stuff that could be done to improve it, but they were trying to sell it for a price as if there was $130,000 worth of profit in the business, and there wasn't. So
that comes back to
appropriately.
I mean, that's a great example, Carrie, of why sometimes, even when you have a team, you need to make sure you've got people who have your best interest. So buying it from a business broker absolutely makes sense, but make sure you've got somebody on your end who can help you. I'm going to tell you, you need a Carrie. You need a business coach who has that experience, who knows what questions to ask, and find that person before you sign any leases. Don't buy property, don't sign a lease, and then call us. All right, I'm going to get off my soapbox.
I mean, we've had that happen a few times, and then we have to help you go through the zoning amendment process or get out of a lease, because we look at it and we're like, there is no residential within 1.5 miles of where you're located. Who did you think was going to bring their kids to you? So whether you're buying an existing business or whether you're leasing or buying a building that you're going to convert into childcare, there's steps to go through. It's not a slam dunk. Automatically, yes, I should do this. This is a good way if you are having a hard time with being overwhelmed or having a hard time making it cash flow. Adding another location, as counterintuitive as it sounds, can be exactly what you need to do, because then you've got some synergy and you've got more people working on the problem, and things will just work better.
I mean, I loved some of the experience. Yeah, I loved some of the examples you shared right at the beginning, which was marketing. You're now marketing 2 locations, or 3 locations. You're not just marketing 1 location. Guess what? It doesn't take anything to put 2 more addresses in an ad, whether it's a print ad or a mailing piece or something on social media. So it's not triple the work. So find yourself somebody who can help you with that mindset shift if you are like stuck thinking, I'm going to have 3 times the work, because that's actually just the opposite. Now, when we talk about buying businesses or taking over buildings and some of that, as you're looking to expand or grow your business, when Carrie talks about that 4th location is another one of those examples with some things to make sure you ask. And there's a reason why I'm going to sit here and tell you, if you're going to expand a program, the person you need to talk to is Carrie. And it's got to do with, she's been through, unfortunately, she's learned some of those questions the hard way. Because again, yeah, sometimes the building owners don't know. So, if I remember right, Carrie, that 4th location, it was the building owner that wanted you to come in and run the program, because the owner just kind of like left. Kids, family, staff, everybody was kind of in a lurch. And when you came in, all of a sudden you had to get a new license. So everything that woman had been, that owner had been grandfathered into, poof, disappeared.
Yeah. And, sometimes the zoning has changed from when it was a childcare center before, and there was a zoning change in between. In my case with the building number 4, it was that a lot of the health codes had changed, and also the fire code had changed. So building code issues. So we had been able to just have a smoke detection system with the number of kids that the building was big enough to be licensed for. Now it needed to be linked and monitored, or we had to put in a fire suppression system. There was some stuff we had to change about sinks. I mean, all of it was doable, and we did the things that made sense for us when we were taking it over. So we didn't take it back up to the full capacity that it theoretically could be licensed for, because there was stuff that would need to be done that it didn't make sense for us financially to do unless and until the capacity got close to that number. And so we just didn't do it. So yeah, I've been there, I've done that, I've got the t-shirt, and I've helped other people with it, which is the other part of it. But this is just such a helpful thing to do. We were working with a program here in Texas that had been in one location for 80 years, 70 years?
A long time.
A long time, decades and decades and decades. They'd had one building, then they'd built a new building and taken down the old building and yada, yada, yada. And they only recently got a second location. Like, they had expanded in their one location from, watching like 30 kids to 100 and some odd. And then they had an opportunity to have a second location that was several miles away. And they were like, cool. And of course, the executive director who gave the go-ahead then almost immediately left. And the organization was like, wait, what are we doing? Why are we having 2 locations? So they had some, how do we run a multi-site location? Because they did not have the infrastructure for running a multi-site business. And they had to learn and grow and develop the skills and the systems for having that multi-site program. Now they've got a lot of that moving and grooving, and I look forward to being able to check on them in about another couple weeks to see how this school year is going. I never call schools the first month of the new school year if they have a school age program, because those people aren't going to be wanting to talk to me. So a month after school has started, reaching out and seeing how everything is going with the new school year, because the second location was adding school age programming this school year. So I can't wait to hear how they're doing.
Absolutely. So the other thing to think about is, and this is kind of, I think, maybe a great place to kind of start to wrap this up, is as you start to think about that expansion, you're not doing identically the same thing at both programs. You have created the systems. It is about using your standard operating procedures. And so the program Carrie was just talking about tried to basically go, okay, this is what we did over here. We have to do that same thing here. And they weren't leveraging
different in the different neighborhood.
But they also weren't leveraging some of the components they already had, like marketing, like training, like administrative staff. They didn't need to double it, which is what they thought they needed to do. Yeah. And so, just keep in mind that not everything has to be doubled. Yes, you're going to need a second space, which will have its own utilities. But, just some of the basics, the marketing, the administrative staff, the substitutes, the staff training, all of that doesn't exactly duplicate. It's actually really not part of the second location's expenses all alone. You get to spread them.
And you can do this great thing where you buy equipment and you rotate it between the different schools. Not everybody needs to have parachutes and climbing tubes, and
if you've got stuff in a closet that's not being used, if you had a second location, it could be used there and you could flip it.
Yep. Rotate the toys, rotate the equipment. It helps tremendously. It absolutely does. And then you're using your resources wisely, which makes the Girl Scout in me very happy.
Absolutely. So if you are listening to this, a couple of things are coming up. One, we do have a masterclass. It's free. It's 2 hours. The registration link is at the bottom, and it is how to start or grow your childcare center in the state of Texas. We've got some other states coming up this year. So if you're in another state and you're listening to this and go, I want to know how to start one and insert my state, send us a message at Kate and Carrie at childcareconversations.com. Let us know. And we're really excited about being able to offer that. And if you're listening to this and you're like, yes, I need somebody to keep me accountable, to make sure I'm not wasting my time or my money, and you want to work with Carrie, shoot us an email, again, at Kate and Carrie at childcareconversations.com, and we will connect you and make sure that that's the right fit.
Okay. So if you enjoyed the show, share it with someone who needs to know what we had to say today. So share the show with those who would like this information, and feel free to leave us a review. It helps other people find this podcast. We want to share this information with as many early childhood educators as we can. See you next week.
Thank you for listening to Childcare Conversations with Kate and Carrie. Want to learn more? Check out our website at texasdirector.org. And if you've learned anything today, leave us a comment below and share the show.